3, 2, 1. Good evening, Bulldog fans, or good morning, depending on what time zone you're in. Steve, Mississippi State did pretty much what they were expected tonight. Come out with a, always have to check it, 45-7 final over Abilene Christian. It's out of the way. Let's move on to Egg Bowl week.
Yeah, I mean, David, it's one of those things you think about. It's like, and I said, I just wanted to see Mississippi State beat up on somebody. This beating took a little while to get started. Mississippi State not crisp on offense early. Did get going, put some points on the board, and really that one unfortunate drive defensively was really the only blemish on the defensive night. But listen, you're not going to learn anything about Mississippi State tonight that you didn't already know. This is a Mississippi State team that has played better defensively down the stretch, but there's no measuring stick with an FCS opponent, like Abilene Christian. You're right, David. It's Egg Bowl week now.
Of course, we can't take away a few things from this game. State started slowly, 2 series, ran the ball well a couple plays, Kylan Hill and Tommy Stevens, but could not convert. And the players admitted that they didn't get behind the pads. They missed some execution. Stevens said he had a couple of open receivers that he didn't select or didn't connect with, some guys that he would not blame them, but they didn't come down with catchable balls either. But after those first 2, they did a few things to tweak the game plan, more so at halftime. But you could see in the second quarter, the Bulldogs really got down to business and just essentially took care of business.
Yeah, I mean, and David, State ran the ball pretty much at will and is how it should have been, But, the main thing that we saw tonight, I think is important, is that outside of maybe Tyree Phillips, who did come back and play some in the second half, State got out of the game pretty much unscathed. Errol Thompson got banged up a little bit. Coach said in postgame we expect him to be back. There were some suspensions this ball game. You'll have the full complement of the healthy roster next weekend. But you get out of this thing without any major injuries, and now you get ready to go play. Ole Miss in a game that means everything to Mississippi State right now. I mean, we always talk about it being the game of the year. This year it literally is.
Well, much like 2011, 2013, 2016, the Egg Bowl is what determines. A few more points on this game before we get away from that. Coach Moorhead made it clear without actually saying so. He wanted this game to be taken under control very early, start rotating guys in and out, and we wondered how many snaps Kylan Hill would get coming off his shot to the head last week against Alabama. Well, as it turned out, he's still playing into the fourth quarter now. It did end up getting 153 rushing yards, no touchdowns, but on 16 carries, averaged almost 10 yards a tote. So he certainly knocked off any rust there, but you didn't want to see him in the game that late. Tommy Stevens, same thing, ends up 13 of 27 passing. Yes, had a very bad start there. I think, 4 of 10 at one point, something like that range, but came on stronger with 165 passing yards. So not the start they wanted, certainly not clean, as Coach Moorhead said. But once they needed to make plays, they really showed what they're capable of doing offensively when the blocking was there, the execution was there, and the recognition was there.
And David, listen, anybody that has ever played any sort of athletics, it is very, very difficult to get started on a cold, damp night against an opponent that you simply outclass. And I'm not making excuses for them, but that's the reality of it. I mean, everything you do stings, when you come out here and play this ball game. But, once State got going, they simply out-athleted Abilene Christian. And Tommy Stevens, to his credit, took some of the blame. Yeah, there were some drops, but listen, he missed on some throws, and I think we all saw that, and that's part of being a senior, part of being a leader, saying, you know what, I've got to do a better job throwing a catchable ball, and I think he took the blame for every one of Stephen Guidry's drops, even though they weren't all his fault. I think it speaks well of the leadership to say, you know what, I got to do a little better job there throwing him more catchable football.
You can see what Kylan Hill is when he is on top of his game like he was. And even when he was held to a couple of yards on carries, I think one time he was stopped for a loss of 2 there. But still, 153 yards. He moved well up the chart. I think now he's something like the 7th best, maybe 6th best season ever by a Bulldog. So he ran a little more anger there, and it seemed to vent some frustrations from last week. Do you think he'll save some of those frustrations for next week? Because that's a game where he, Stevens, everybody has to run the ball hard, well, and productively.
And Kylan has had 2 good Egg Bowls. I mean, even going back to the one that we lost here 2 years ago after a cheap shot to Nick Fitzgerald. I mean, Kylan ran hard and had a long touchdown run in that ball game. And so he understands what's at stake. He is a guy that grew up here in Lowndes County, Mississippi, and so he understands the value in this game, not just for this season, but what it means for the legacy. And I asked Tommy Stevens a little bit about that. Rivalry games are how you build your legacy. I mean, and that's one of the things, too, as great as a quarterback as Dak Prescott was, he did not have a sparkling record against Ole Miss. And so our neighbors to the north kind of claim a little bit of a smugness, shall we say, because of the fact that they've got the better Dak Prescott. And so Tommy Stevens, 1 year here at Mississippi State, he has a chance to write a very happy ending to the season with a win on Thursday that would send Mississippi State into the postseason.
Also back to this game as we keep, kind of wrenching it back and forth there. State was playing without some guys. Obviously, the Tutorgate 10 were not participating tonight. Everybody's back next week. I thought the young defensive line actually made some pretty good plays there against a very mobile quarterback and a surprisingly efficient running back who could catch and do some things with the ball. Abilene Christian was not exactly a pushover in that regard. They had some creativity, and they had some guys who could make plays offensively. But, again, despite the yardage, they only scored 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and David, it's been basically the whole season – to this point, the defensive front has been an issue. But the last 3 weeks, they have kind of found a sense of themselves and are playing with a little more confidence. I think that bodes well for next week because you're going to have some gap integrity with a quarterback like John Rice Plumlee. He is a guy, listen, let's be honest, they're running a sliver of the playbook with him in the ball game. And that's not a criticism of him. It's just he hasn't had a lot of time to absorb the full playbook there. And so they simplified his reads. There's a lot of, basically one read and go. And he is a guy like this, Abilene Christian's quarterback tonight. He kind of works through his progressions, which allowed the pass rush to get there some. That won't be the case Thursday night. If it's first or second read's not there, Plumlee's going to try to get up and go down the field. And he is a very formidable opponent despite his young age.
We talk about simplifying the playbook, and again, we're not criticizing them. They're making the best of their situation. I think State learned a hard lesson midseason, too. They had to simplify their own playbook, particularly when Garrett Schrader was quarterback. And by the way, it was good to see him get some snaps out there tonight, run the ball hard, set up a couple of touchdown plays as well. But Tommy Stevens, despite his familiarity with the offense, I think they have simplified a few things for him, maybe cut down on some of the reads, maybe shorten some of the field he has to look at, and that's made him more productive when his passing touches on. So you're at the point of the season now with 2 teams that have figured out we better just stick to what we can do if we want to have any chance to win this week.
Yeah, you can't go out there and reinvent yourself in the rivalry game. I mean, short of us starting Keaton Thompson with a package he's been working on for 3 months, there won't be any surprises come Thursday.
I hope you just didn't break a secret right there.
You kind of are who you are at this point, David. Everybody has their own identity, and I think you mentioned dating back to the Arkansas game, Tommy Stevens has become more of a threat in the running game, which has opened up some things for Colin Hill because they have to account for Tommy as a threat in the running game. And he looked good tonight. I really thought, especially the running aspect of it, it took him a while to get going as a passer. But there was a big third down conversion that he made there. Then there was really nothing there, and he ran hard and picked up a good block down the field. And we'd be remiss, David, if we didn't mention there were some wide receivers tonight that actually did have a good ball. Dedrick Thomas, I thought, had a couple of good catches. And, we threw a couple balls to Farrod Green. He had a couple of good plays as well. And so there's some things to feel good about. But the bottom line, David, is it's a 5-6 team about to play a 4-7 team. These are not 2 great teams, but we could have a great ball game. We could have one that we would remember because there is a good chance that the winner of this game is going to the postseason.
What happened with Cyrus Mitchell tonight? I know he got banged up late in the play, but from your field side, was he just being taken out of the game plan? Was Stevens not looking for him? Was just something going on?
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything going on. I know that they got tangled up a little bit on that deep post pattern and just couldn't get it in. Osiris tried to undercut the defender there to go make a play on the ball. Their legs get tangled up. It looked like he was kind of favoring his hamstring a little bit. We'll ask Joe Moorhead about that on Monday. And David, as you know, everything is kind of sped up this week. So all of those guys that got a little nicked up tonight, and Joe said that we're banged up. Everybody's banged up at this point in the year. And I even asked some of those guys, too, would you rather have had the bye week or would you rather have been played? And everybody's like, you got to go play the game either way. It doesn't really matter what your preference is. And so I think if it were me, this late in the year, having some rhythm, I think, is important. I think maybe they found a little bit later in the ball game tonight. And so now it's time to go play Ole Miss.
Rhythm's good as long as you're healthy, and of course we'll be talking to Coach Moorhead as much as he'll say about injuries, but it looks like the guy should be available this week. 100%, maybe not, but again, as you say, everybody's hurt at this point of the season too. So obviously now, Mississippi State, as Moorhead said early in the week, it's going to be a short night for them, maybe a nap, he said, not even getting any bedtime, just a nap, and then hit the office quickly. He did make an interesting point, though. The players are going to do some self-scouting and then their own film analysis because the coaches have to really scramble to put a game plan together. Now, yes, you and I know that during the open date before Alabama, they've been working on this, but they still have a lot of film breakdown to do, things like that. So the players, the Bulldogs have to take it on themselves to start their own preparations for their own matchups and their own fits into these schemes. How much do you think these guys have thought about this game? I will ask them this week. I didn't want to hit them with it immediately after the game, but even Moorhead admitted that he lied when he said that the week was going to be all about Abilene Christian. He said, yes, he admitted he's been looking at this game. Do you think many of the player minds have already been turning to that, taking this game practically for granted because they know what's at stake in that game, even setting the rivalry aside?
Tommy Stevens said that he has heard about the Egg Bowl since the moment he arrived on campus, and about the expectation, and they want you to go win the ball game. And so, Dave, it's one of those things, too, with this group, there's been such a long season. Now you have a chance to write a happy ending to this thing and get this team into the postseason. You could end the season on a 3-game winning streak and have some momentum headed into the offseason. But you win a ball game or not, you're expected to win. It wasn't pretty early, especially. But you got the outcome you needed. As Tommy Stevens said, our goal was to win. We won the ball game. And you get out here relatively healthy. And so now it's time to go take care of the team that it's a game that you look forward to all year. This is the game that everybody talks about all year long. People aren't going to really talk so much about how you played against Memphis if you're Ole Miss. They're not going to talk about how you played against Auburn. They're going to talk about how you played against each other, because this is what we know in good years and in great years and in bad years especially. This is the one you got to have.
So that's our wrap-up here from Davis-Wade Stadium above Scott Field. Mississippi State defeats visiting Abilene Christian 45-7. The Bulldogs are now 5-6 going into the Egg Bowl. They need to win this game to get bowl eligible and extend that streak to a full decade. The Rebels still have an outside shot if they win by getting in by the APR. They're coming into the game 4-7. So both teams have motivation as far as that goes. How much that factors into it, really, you never know until the guys show up. But as we've said, talking all today, even ahead of this game, the team that shows up Thursday wanting to be on this field and play a football game is the team that is going to walk off this field victorious and have a chance at the postseason. This is the week for Joe Moorhead and staff. If they've been able this season at all to get a team motivated, this is the game they have to have them motivated. And frankly, the Bulldogs have to pull it out of their own selves, because if you don't want to be on this field Thursday, just don't bother showing up, because it will turn ugly that way. So we'll be talking about it this week. Coach Moorhead will have his regular 12:30 presser on Monday. Media schedule this week is a little expedited. We'll get to coaches and players as well on Monday night. No access on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so all our content will be coming from there. From our game today, Paul Jones and Robbie Falk are now working on their sidebar stories. Steve will have his videos linked up as quickly as possible. I'll have a sidebar tomorrow on Kylan Hill. Game story coming up at some point this evening when I can get a little warmed up and if there's any coffee left over in there. But the Bulldogs' homecoming evening, by the way, the latest ever homecoming on the campus of Mississippi State here in late November. The Bulldogs come out victorious 45-7 and now have everything to play for and to write the legacy of the 2019 season this coming Thanksgiving night. 6:30 kickoff from Scott Field. Make your plans to be here. For Steve Robertson, this is David Murray.